Okay, so imagine you have the ability to literally step inside history. Like, not read about it, not watch a documentary. Actually walk through it, breathe it in, feel the air around you. Now imagine the first time you try to use that power to save your dad and it does not work. His throat still gets ripped out right in front of you. And you are standing there completely helpless, covered in scratches, watching it happen again. That is where Julie Matthews is right now in season 4 of From. And I have to tell you, the more I dig into what is actually going on with her storywalking powers, the more I think she is not just a side character with a cool ability. She might be the single most important person in that entire town. And today, we are going to talk about why. Welcome back. If you are new here, this channel is where we take shows that break your brain and try to put the pieces back together in a way that actually makes sense. From is one of those shows where if you blink, you miss something. And if you do not blink, something bites your neck. So let us get into it. Let us do a quick reset for anyone who needs it. And honestly, even if you have watched every episode, this is worth going over again because the layers here are deep. Julie Matthews arrived in Fromville as part of the Matthews family, this ordinary American family who took a wrong turn and ended up trapped in a town that does not want them to leave. From the jump, this family is weird. Not bad weird, special weird. The town seems to care about them in a way it does not care about everybody else. And Julie, for a long time, felt like the angry teenager of the group. She was distant from her parents. She had her own stuff going on. She was grieving the loss of her baby brother long before the show even started. And that grief never really went away. It just got buried under all the nightmare fuel of living in a town with smiling monsters. But here is the thing. That grief, that emotional weight she has been carrying seems to be directly tied to her ability. Because storywalking, from what the show tells us, is not just a skill you pick up like learning to ride a bike. It seems to activate in people who are deeply connected to something. And Julie is connected to loss in a way most people cannot even process. Now let us talk about storywalking itself, because I think a lot of people are still fuzzy on the mechanics. The way the show frames it is almost like the town is a book. Every moment that has happened in Fromville is a chapter, and a storywalker can step into those chapters. They can walk through them, see what happened, feel the environment. Think of it like being a ghost inside someone else's memory. But here is the rule, and this is the part that trips people up. You cannot change the chapters. Ethan says it plainly, storywalkers can visit the chapters, but they cannot change them. And the show pulls a move here that fans of time travel fiction will recognize immediately. Whatever happened, happened. If Julie threw a rope down to Boyd in the past, she always threw that rope. Her future self was always going to go back and do it. The story was already written. This is exactly the same logic that Lost used with its time travel. You are not creating new timelines, you are completing loops that already exist. Though when season 3 ends with a future version of Julie, with shorter hair and fresh scratches on her face, desperately trying to warn Jim before the man in yellow kills him and still failing, that tells us something massive. That future Julie already knew it would not work. She had probably tried before, multiple times. Those scratches were not from one trip. That is the weight of someone who has been trying to rewrite a chapter that cannot be rewritten. Okay, so let us talk about the actual emotional engine of all this, because the storywalking stuff only hits as hard as it does because of what Julie lost. Jim Matthews was not the perfect dad. For a long time after losing their baby, both Jim and Tabitha kind of checked out emotionally. Julie felt that. She felt invisible to them, and so she put distance between herself and her family as a way of protecting herself. But then Fromville happened. And when you're trapped in a place where something can eat you at night, petty family drama starts to dissolve pretty fast. Jim and Julie were rebuilding. There was something real coming back between them, and then it got taken in the most brutal, most abrupt way possible. Anna Cherami, who plays Julie, said in an interview that she does not even think Julie is processing the grief right now. She is denial, but a very specific kind of denial. The kind where you refuse to accept that something is permanent. She is not crying and healing. She is plotting all of that grief directly into the only thing that might actually help her powers. And that tracks, because what is the or a teenager trapped in a supernatural nightmare? Your dad was just killed by a monster, and by the way, you have the ability to literally walk through time. Of course you are going to use it. Of course you are going to try every angle to undo what happened, even if deep down you already know you cannot. So Julie tries it, she goes back, she tries to save Jim, and it does not work. The man in yellow kills him anyway, and Julie is left standing there having watched her dad die twice. Now if that was the only damage, it would already be brutal. But the setback hits her in a second way too, and this one is more subtle but honestly just as painful. Randall, the one person outside her family who gets it, the one person who feels what she feels when they are at those ruins, he pulls her out and basically tells her, do not do that again, you are going to get yourself killed. And that lands differently than you might expect. Because Julie was ready to try again immediately. She was already planning the next attempt. But Randall, this guy she trusted, this guy who she thought believed in her, he pumps the brakes hard. And suddenly she has this new doubt she did not have before. Not about the powers, about herself, about whether she is being reckless, about whether the trust she's been putting in this ability is earned or delusional. That is a very human way to write this moment. The external failure is one thing, but someone you trust looking at you and saying, "You might die if you keep doing this," that plants a seed that is a lot harder to pull out. Now here is where the season gets genuinely mind-bending in the best way. Julie goes back into the ruins again in episode 4 to try a new theory. She has this idea about leaving a bookmark, literally a piece of paper with a mark on it, inside the chapter she walks into, so that when she returns to the present, the bookmark comes back with her. That would give her a tether, a way to navigate the story with some control instead of just landing wherever the ruins decide to drop her. The theory does not work, no mark on the paper when she gets back, but what she sees during that trip is something that changes the entire texture of the season. She lands in a moment where everyone in Fromville is dead, bodies everywhere, chest cavities torn open, and she hears something behind her, that wet, horrible sound. She turns around and there is the man in yellow eating someone, not threatening her, not performing, just eating, like she interrupted a meal. And here's the thing, he does not recognize her. In their other encounters, there has been this eerie familiarity, like he knows exactly who she is. But in this moment, from his perspective, it is their first meeting, which means Julie has just walked into a chapter that has not happened yet from her current timeline. She has seen the future, or a possible future, a version of Fromville where the man in yellow has already won. That is a completely different kind of information than anything she could have gotten by walking backward. The ruins are not just a window to the past, they are a window to chapters she has not reached yet, and the implications of that are enormous. We cannot talk about any of this without talking about him, so let us go there. The man in yellow is currently disguised as Sophia, a pastor's daughter, walking around inside the town pretending to be a new arrival. Smart move, by the way, because Victor would have recognized his real form. Victor saw the same figure eating his mother decades ago. That is the connection Henry and Victor are digging up when they find the buried drawings, and it is the exact same thing Julie sees during her story walking. The fan theories about who this character actually is have exploded this season, and honestly some of them are genuinely compelling. The most convincing one ties him to the giant spider that has been lurking in the background since episode 1 of the entire show. Ethan dreamed about it. Boyd saw Abby trapped inside a web. The theory goes that the man in yellow is not the top of the food chain. He is the avatar of something older, something that uses the town as a trap. And the giant spider is the real entity behind all of it. And then there is the Lake of Tears theory, which might be the most important piece of the puzzle right now. Jim's spirit tells Ethan to find the Lake of Tears in Season 4. That lake showed up in Ethan's dreams back in Season 1, alongside a spider sitting at the top of a fishbowl. Some fans are drawing a straight line between that image and Greek mythology, the underworld, the rivers of Acheron, the idea of purgatory having an exit if you know where to look. If that theory holds, then the man in yellow is essentially a gatekeeper. His entire purpose is to stop people from finding that exit. And the fact that he tried to stop Julie during her story walking and seemed thrown off by her presence might mean she is getting close to something he does not want found. One more layer worth digging into here, because I think it says something interesting about how the show is building this season. Julie does not turn to her mom for support around the story walking. She turns to Randall, and that is a deliberate choice, not just in the writing but in how Julie herself sees it. The reason is simple but kind of profound. Randall feels it too. When they go to those ruins together, something happens to him. He cannot explain it, but the experience is shared. That is real to Julie in a way that descriptions and conversations are not. She does not have to convince him that something is happening at those ruins. He already knows. Tabitha has her own connection to the town's mysteries. She has encountered the lighthouse. She has her own threads she is pulling, but Julie does not know all of that yet, and even if she did, Tabitha is also her mother. There is emotional history there that would complicate the conversation before it even started. So Julie lands on Randall as her anchor, which is both touching and a little terrifying because Randall is also the person who just told her to stop doing the one thing she believes can make a difference. So where does all of this land us? Julie is sitting on what might be the most powerful ability in all of Fromville. She has already seen a future where the man in yellow wins. She has already completed loops that made other characters survive situations they should not have survived. She is the reason Boyd had a rope. She just does not know the full shape of what she is supposed to do yet. The show ends with Season 5. That was confirmed, which means every thread right now, the Lake of Tears, the spider, the man in yellow inside the town disguised as Sophia, Victor's buried memories, Julie's growing abilities, all of it is pointing toward a conclusion. The Matthews family is at the center of this story for a reason. And Julie, specifically, might be the one who figures out what nobody else could. The question is whether she keeps pushing forward or whether Randall's fear becomes her own, whether grief becomes her weapon or her cage. And here is the thing about From that makes it genuinely different from most shows doing this kind of mystery box storytelling. It actually cares about the people inside the box. Julie is not just a plot device with time travel powers. She is a kid who lost her dad and is refusing to accept it. And the show is using that grief to drive something that could change everything. That is what good science fiction horror is supposed to do. Alright, that is going to wrap it up for today. If you want to keep going down this rabbit hole, the comment section is right there. What do you think Julie is going to find if she actually masters storywalking? What do you think the Lake of Tears actually is? And is the man in yellow the final boss, or is there something worse underneath him? Let me know, and I will see you in the next one.